Welcome to the ScreenCrush Break Room. I'm Ryan Airy. Loki has given Marvel fans a lot to think about. 2 episodes in, and the show has already made us question what we think we know about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I'm not just talking about the confusing time travel rules or how Infinity Stones now belong in the junk drawer. I'm even starting to question the happy ending that Steve Rogers had at the end of Avengers Endgame. The movie ends with Steve finally getting his dance with Peggy. But then, holy cow, we see what looks like Peggy Carter being arrested by the Time Variance Authority in the first episode of Loki. So does this mean that Steve made too many changes to the timeline and the TVA had to reset his happy epilogue? Or was Steve actually living in the MCU all along, growing old behind the scenes? Not to mention there's TV shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Daredevil, and the other Marvel Netflix shows. Are they even still in the MCU, or a multiverse of the MCU, or were they possible realities that the Timekeepers scrubbed out of existence? Confused? I hope so, because we have a lot of explaining to do. First, let's quickly go over what the heck a multiverse even means. For you longtime comic fans and string theory enthusiasts, don't worry, this won't take long. The multiverse is a theoretical concept that there are an infinite number of possible realities. In some versions, maybe you were a famous actor. In others, maybe people evolved to look like pizza. The multiverse has been a staple in comics since the 1961 comic The Flash of Two Worlds, where the present-day Flash meets his counterpart from a new Earth, Earth 2. For comic creators, the multiverse is a great storytelling tool. It allowed writers to create standalone stories that didn't have to connect with the larger comic book universe, because all of these stories took place in different dimensions, separate universes, all part of the same multiverse. In Marvel, the main comic book universe is called Earth 616, while the cinematic universe is called Earth 199999. The idea of the multiverse is also taking hold in films and TV. Warner Brothers has rebranded their DC Extended Universe as the DC Extended Multiverse, basically saying that all of their superhero TV shows, cartoons, movies, and comics are part of a united multiverse.
Hello? What the hell is this?
Taken one way, this is a way to tell fans that their favorite characters from different franchises can cross over, like how the DCEU Flash is about to meet Michael Keaton's Batman. But it's also a way for corporations to bring all of their intellectual property under one roof so they can feed off of each other. This is what Sony appears to be doing with the Spider-Man movies, having MCU characters like the Vulture meet non-MCU characters like Michael Morbius.
Michael Morbius. Got tired of doing the whole good guy thing, huh?
What's up, Doc?
So what does all of this have to do with the MCU? When the Marvel Cinematic Universe debuted its TV shows, they used the tagline, "It's all connected." So Extremis and President Ellis from Iron Man 3 appeared in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That show led directly into Captain America Winter Soldier and picked up where it left off. I mean, there was no doubt that this was a single, united universe. And then there were the Netflix shows, which tied in as well, kind of. There were newspaper headlines about the Battle of New York, but mostly the characters sort of danced around mentioning the actual movie characters by name.
Tony Stark, the big blonde dude with the hammer, the old dude with the shield, the green monster, and I don't mean Fenway.
If he had an iron suit or a magic hammer, maybe.
And this is the worst one.
So go after the big green guy, the flag waver.
Oh, God, it's awful. It makes me think they maybe didn't have the rights to use the actual character names, which hardly implies this is a united universe.
You should be out there helping people, that's all. Like them other fellas downtown.
So, you doing anything this weekend? Ever since I got my vaccine, every time I leave the house, it really hits home how unhealthy I feel after doing this for a year. But I think we're all ready to get back out there and get healthy. I mean, for me, it's always been overwhelming. It's hard to know how to get healthy. But that's where Noom comes in. They're the sponsor of this video. I like Noom because it's not a diet. They use science and psychology to help me identify, say, why I'm always triggered to eat the cookies. Noom uses proven psychology and cognitive behavioral therapy to help you identify your bad behaviors and make healthier choices. It's like they show you how your mind works. It's about learning, not dieting, and it's incredibly easy to use. They walk you through your behavior triggers step by step. Their food database is outstanding. They help you track your exercise. It's almost like your body becomes a video game and you level up by becoming healthier. But you won't be alone to figure it out. You'll also have your own support goal specialist who is trained in psychology, fitness, and nutrition. Click the link in the description for your free evaluation. It's quick, easy, and will help you create your own custom plan.
You're gonna disappear. Nowhere to be found.
Nowhere? You know me better than that, Phil. I'll be everywhere.
And then there was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The show featured a resurrected Agent Coulson who stayed in hiding and never appeared in the movies again. Instead, he worked behind the scenes. When Fury says,
Pulled her out of mothballs with a couple of old friends.
he's actually talking about Agent Coulson helping him get this aircraft carrier in an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Then, Avengers Infinity War rolled around, aliens attacked New York, and the Defenders didn't help out. That's kind of weird. Then, Thanos snapped away half the universe, and this does not affect any of these TV shows at all. Add into that, Alfre Woodard played different characters in Captain America Civil War and Luke Cage, and Mahershala Ali has already played Cottonmouth but was cast in the movies as Blade. So the message is clear, the TV shows don't count. And this is all because of behind-the-scenes shenanigans. See, Marvel TV was supervised by a different branch of Marvel Studios, so they were actually working totally independently of one another. The creators of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't even know about the Thanos snap until they saw it in theaters.
This is absurd.
But there was also an easy, in-universe reason for all of this to happen. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and these Netflix shows took place in different realities that were part of a Marvel cinematic multiverse. Avengers Endgame even seemed to confirm this when it was revealed that time travel did not change the future, it simply created new timelines like parallel universes. So we were all content to enjoy the suffering of Matt Murdock because we understood that that show takes place in a separate universe. It didn't matter that Coulson was alive in the show because he was dead in the MCU. In the first episode of Loki, Mobius doesn't mention that Coulson is alive, which makes it seem like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was definitely part of a multiverse. But then there was another complication: Steve's happy ending. You know what I mean. So Steve goes back in time, returns the stone, says, "What's up?" to the Red Skull. But instead of returning back to the same spot in the quantum tunnel in the present day, he stayed in the year 1949 and lives with Peggy. Now, according to the rules Endgame just laid out, this should create a new variant timeline. I actually did a video theorizing about what would happen in that timeline. You should check it out if you have time. Because, as we know, Steve can't not help people.
If I see a situation pointed south, I can't ignore it. Sometimes I wish I could.
Steve would help make this alternate reality a perfect one, where Bucky was never the Winter Soldier, Hydra was ended, Civil War never happened, and Thanos never snapped. After all, if it's an alternate reality, well, then you might as well make the most of it. But here's the thing, old Steve didn't appear in the time tunnel, which he would have done if he was returning from a parallel dimension. Instead, he was sitting on a bench like he'd been living in the main MCU timeline. Now, the Russo brothers insisted that Steve lived in an alternate universe, but the screenwriters claimed that Steve had actually been living in the MCU all along, which makes no sense. It means that Steve Rogers, a very famous person, was hiding from the outside world for 70 years. Then he hid in the other room while his younger self visited Peggy. Look, it's dumb, but it's possible, sure. Maybe since Steve knew everything was going to turn out fine, he didn't mind watching his best friend suffer for 3/4 of a century at the hands of the world's most diabolical secret society. We also did a whole video breaking down exactly why the TVA arrested Loki instead of the Avengers.
What they did was supposed to happen. You escaping was not.
Basically, it was okay that the Avengers took the stones because they were always going to return them.
Because it's all part of the plan.
But if this is Peggy Carter getting arrested, then it means that Steve took it too far. He stayed too long after last call and got himself into trouble. Instead of living out his days quietly, he had to interfere.
I can't ignore it.
Or maybe he told Peggy a piece of information about the future and she changed the timeline and that's why she's being arrested. I mean, we're assuming this is her because it's more fun that way. But let's look closer at the sequence of events in Endgame. Loki was not supposed to take the Tesseract, but he did, causing a Nexus event and a tangent reality. As a result of this, Steve and Tony had to travel back to the 1970s to take another Tesseract. During this visit, Steve sees Peggy and it makes him sad. So sad that he decides to travel back in time and live out his life with her. Do you see where I'm going with this? Loki is the reason that Steve gets a happy ending. So this dance that Steve has at the end of the movie was not part of the Timekeeper's plan. So Peggy Carter was reset because Steve created a tangent timeline. So we can presume that the TVA then used these little jam jars to reset reality.
Oh, there goes gravity!
And Steve's happy epilogue was erased. Remember, the TVA cannot abide branching timelines. They only want one singular sacred timeline. But then, what does this mean for these other Marvel timelines in the TV shows? What of Charlie Cox's Daredevil and Coulson's extended lifespan? Well, gang, there's a couple of options. One, these timelines did exist, but the TVA scrubbed them out. This would be pretty meta, as another bureaucracy, Marvel Studios, essentially scrubbed these shows out of its own continuity. But there is another option. See, we know there's going to be a Marvel multiverse. Doctor Strange 2 is called the Multiverse of Madness. Villains from other Spider-Man franchises are going to appear in No Way Home, and the Marvel What If show is about what happens in separate realities of the multiverse. In the trailers, we see multiple branching timelines like everything is going south. This could be the variant Loki's plan, to create a multiverse, destroying the Timekeepers and the TVA. Now, if that's the case, then other realities, Cap and Peggy's Dance, Marvel Netflix, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Cloak and Dagger, were created by the variance interference. But this really is a matter that we should settle down in the comments. Was Steve living in the MCU all along? Should Marvel save its Netflix shows? Tell me in the comments or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.